Okay, so now we are looking at the Temple Mount area, and I wanted to discuss Josephus here in chapter 5 when he describes the Mount Moriah or Mount Moriah. He says in chapter 5, verse 1, "Now this temple, as I have already said, was built upon a strong hill. At first, the plain at the top was hardly sufficient for the holy house and the altar, for the ground above it was very uneven and like a precipice." A precipice here means that it had a sharp edge surrounding the strong hill. It was like it was what's the name of that? It was, you were standing on a hill, but the edge was a drop off like a cliff. Okay. Let's see. For the ground above it was very uneven and like a precipice. But when King Solomon, who was the person that built the temple, had built a wall to it on its east side, there was then added one cloister founded on the bank cast up for it, and on the other parts the holy house stood naked. So right here in this spot, right here in this spot right here, it was a hill that sat up out of the ground, and it says that Solomon built a ramp going up towards that hill so that they could walk upwards to it because of the sharp cliff-like edges on the other sides. Okay, so let's see. But in future ages, the people added new banks. So they started adding banks around the strong hill. And the hill became a large plain. They then broke down the wall on the north side and took in as much as sufficed afterward for the compass of the entire temple. So they filled in the area around the strong hill where the first temple was set up by Solomon. When they had built walls on three sides of the temple round about from the bottom of the hill, and had performed a work that was greater than could be hoped for, in which work long ages were spent, that was greater than could be hoped for in which, I just read that again, by them, as well as all their sacred treasures were exhausted, which were still replenished by those tributes which were sent to Elohim from the whole habitable earth. They then encompassed their upper courts with cloisters, as well as they afterward did the lowest court of the temple. The lowest part of this was erected to the height of 300 cubits. That's almost as long as the ark, and in some places more. Yet did not the entire depth of the foundation appear, for they brought earth and filled up the valleys, as being desirous to make them on a level with the narrow streets of the city, wherein they made use of stones of 40 cubits in magnitude, for the great plenty of money they then had, and the liberality of the people made this attempt of theirs to succeed to an incredible degree. And what could not be as so much as hoped for as ever to be accomplished was the perseverance and length of time brought to perfection. Okay, So we ended up, our ancestors built up this area surrounding the temple. Now we do know that all of the whole valley was not was not filled in because the Romans said that the best way to attack, according to Josephus, was they attacked the temple from the northern side because the other area was a deep valley. So what we're going to do from here is I'm going to show a picture of what that deep valley kind of looked like from King Azana of one of the kings of Ethiopia, who was some say he was kin to Solomon and Sheba. Some say that he was not, but he did see Jerusalem at the time around the time of Yeshua. And so he went and he looked at the city, and when he came back, because of all of what was going on in Jerusalem with the Greeks and the Romans, the Roman Empire, he built a replica of Jerusalem. And here, this is the replica of, albeit it's a small scale, that small scale, but this is a representation of what it kind of looked like, the Temple Mount. Of course, you know, there wasn't a cross and everything, but it kind of gives you a look at, you know, looking at it from below. You know, this isn't 300 cubits. It's actually longer, higher, but you know, it gives you the awesomeness of what the Temple Mount looked like, standing below at the very bottom of the foundations. Okay, so we're gonna look. I'm just gonna talk a little bit about the temple ruins being covered up. This is the Temple Mount area, and this is the Baris, or the Antonio Fortress. And this area, this area was covered. It was covered with sand. It looked like a dune. It was like a high dune, and we know that Hadrian, the emperor of Rome, and also the Ishmaelites, they covered this whole area up. I believe in the I want to say in the 70s or the 80s, maybe the 80s, that the Jewish people, the Ashkenazis, uncovered this, and they called this area Arad. But they also found these artifacts here, and that's where Brother Hoshua Amariel was there during the archaeological dig, and he was the voice calling out to Yasharal that these two artifacts found had the name Beit Yahuwah. Both of these artifacts had the name Beit Yahuwah. Now, this is the only spot in all Yasharal where this is found. There's no other areas in the land where Beit Yahuwah has been found. Yes, Beit Daoud has been found in Irdan, but nowhere has this been found. And that alone, based on the scripture that I mentioned earlier in the video number 1, we know for a fact that this is the Temple Mount area. Now, the next video, we're going to walk up. We're going to go across the valley, which has been filled, and then we're going to go up into the upper city, and we will discuss what Josephus' description of the upper city, and we'll just look at it.